Minty, you use your thieves' tools successfully, and you break into this factory. It's a bit strange that it's locked in the first place, but based on all of your passive perceptions, you hear the faint hum of machinery, and in the distance, through dimly lit hallways, you see dim lights reflecting off of creatures that seem to be walking around. They're about the size of goblins, but they're definitely not goblins. Just DM perspective, remember, you're all here for a couple of reasons. Primarily, to see if the artificer who used to provide magic items to the local town shopkeepers is still alive and if they're okay. But also to see if the energy chamber that ran this operation is functional or salvageable if it's not currently operational. I'm Trevor, and I post D&D videos on this channel. Often, though not always inspired by Magic the Gathering, my biggest thing is just trying to make your D&D games better, whether you're a player or a DM. In this video, I'm going to share some homebrew stat blocks for monsters that you can include in your upcoming 5e games. The origin of this, and I've done stuff similar on the channel before, I posted a TikTok where I asked if there were any magic cards people wanted to see ported into 5th edition, and that's where I came up with these ideas. So I appreciate those of you who follow me on TikTok and may have commented on that specific video. In this video, and there's going to be kind of a loose narrative throughout, I didn't actually write up an adventure, although if there's interest in that, I could try to find time to write it out and show you how I would use these creatures in my 5e game. But like I said, there will be a loose narrative that you could follow. Abishar, you lead the party down these caverns and corridors through this seemingly abandoned factory. And you come to a room. The door is open and you see these metallic creatures inside. It's maybe 30 or 40 feet from when you entered. The light is still flickering off of them and you can tell that these creatures are walking around. It looks like they're doing things. Roll a perception check for me. Okay, so based on that, you can tell that these are constructs of some variety, though you don't have any familiarity with them yourself. And it seems like some of them are grabbing scrap metal and bringing it to others. Some of them are making repairs. Some of them seem to be welding things together. You're not quite sure if they're aggressive or not. What do you want to do as a party? Specifically, this is going to be an exploration of an abandoned factory, just like the beginning of the video started. And all of the creatures in Magic are artifact creatures. Let's start with the first one, Myr Retriever. Now, Myr Retriever is a pretty innocuous Magic card. I have a weird fondness for this card, and I don't know why. I legitimately can't explain it. I love the art for all of the Myr. They look like weird chicken robots. And this card is essentially an equivalent power level to, say, a goblin. It's not supposed to be a high-level big bad or anything like that. I like having other options to start players off with, and with a specific creature like this, they don't even necessarily have to fight it. So the Myr Retriever card in Magic, if you have one of them out, it can bring the other ones back from the graveyard. They create this little engine of sorts, and they're just adorable. I wanted to try to get that across in the 5th edition Homebrew. So they have a basic claw attack, they have natural armor, obviously they have HP and stuff, but they have a bonus action where if there is another Myr Retriever downed around them, they can heal it for 2d8 damage and bring it back to life. This could get out of control, but I don't even necessarily imagine these creatures as having to be aggressive. Maybe some of them are corrupted and that's why they're attacking the party. And when they come back up, they just continue doing their tasks. I just wanted to try to get the flavor of the card across. And if your PCs don't choose to fight this, I don't see that being a problem at all. Not everything has to be a combat encounter. But if they do, at least in the narrative that I'm going to go through in this video, they're actually kind of getting a little bit of foreshadowing for how the constructs in this factory are going to operate. So that's Myr Retriever. I hope you like this stat block. I hope it fits for the flavor of the Magic card. And if you do, let me know in the comments down below. Or if you think that you would come up with a different way to flavor this in your 5e game, I'd love to hear that as well. As you leave the room where the servitors were, you continue down kind of winding stairwells into a basement. You follow the hum that's growing louder and louder as you're walking through. Edgar, you're welcome to make either an investigation check or an arcana check to see if you can figure out the source of this or if it sounds like it's in working order, although it will be difficult given how far away you are. As you get closer and you kind of come down a pathway, you see into this room and there are more creatures here. These don't match the ones from the previous room. Instead, they look somewhat similar, at least some of them do. Similar body shapes, but they're on long, spindly legs, and they're walking around and picking up scrap metal. There's one that seems to be scurrying around a bit more quickly and climbing up and around the walls of the room. And that one that one is much larger than the rest. This is Myr Retriever. This is a pretty weak magic card in terms of stat line, but its ability is pretty strong. When it dies, you can bring another artifact from your graveyard to your hand, and that resource loop can be very powerful in a card game like Magic. I wanted to try to get that across in 5e, and hopefully you're seeing a trend, right? All of these cards have something about like rebuilding themselves or recycling artifacts. Now, for Myr Retriever, it is a tougher combat encounter, like higher armor class, more HP. The big thing is it does have a 10-foot reach, so it can attack from farther away, which to me makes sense. I mean, look at its legs. The other thing is its on-death ability. Specifically, it has an ability called Rebuild. When it dies, a construct within 30 feet of it is hit by essentially a healing EMP, and it heals for 2d8 damage. This will bring back a downed construct, and that to me is the equivalent of putting a card back in your hand in Magic the Gathering. I thought that this was a cool way of doing things, and I hope it doesn't get too out of hand. Now, obviously, if you have two of these and one dies and they could keep bringing each other back, you could put a cap on this. You can make it so other Myr Retrievers aren't affected. There are a lot of knobs and levers we have as DMs to adjust it, but I did want to get something across to have that recycling ability, and it also links to the final bad guy in this combat encounter. So Scrap Trawler is the mini boss for this. It looks kind of spider-like. It's tougher in terms of the magic card and the actual stat block for 5e. It has higher HP, more armor class. It has spider climb, so it can actually climb around the room, which I think is kind of cool. This is the only creature of these three that has multi-attack. It also has a ranged attack. I wanted this to be the culminating big boss before your players finish whatever quest they're on, right? In the narrative that I'm going through, my players have to find the Artificer and see if the energy chamber, which is also inspired by Magic the Gathering, is still operational or repairable. But whatever you choose to do, I wanted this to be the kind of figurehead for this abandoned factory or encounter that I'm throwing at you. The big thing about Scrap Trawler that sets it apart from the others, besides everything I already mentioned, is its recycle reaction. When another construct within 30 feet would be dropped to 0 HP, it's dropped to 1 HP instead. Then it heals 2d8 hit points and can make a melee attack. This is a lot to throw into a reaction, but I think it's just really cool, and it gets all of the flavor elements across that I'm trying to get across. This is a powerful machine-based bad guy that can reuse the life force and help bring these constructs back into fighting power. But that wording is very important. This means it does not overlap with the on-death ability of Myr Retriever. And that, I needed that to be the case, right? Because I didn't want these things to essentially go infinite. So that's Myr Servitor, Myr Retriever, and Scrap Trawler. I have more of these videos planned. And I actually had some comments on that TikTok about the infect mechanic and Phyrexians. If you know anything about Magic the Gathering, Phyrexians are one of the big bads in Magic's lore. With the constructs dealt with, Edgar, you can now make an investigation or arcana check on the energy chamber itself. Based on that roll, you do know that although it is currently flickering in and out of operation, it is fixable. So you can report that back when you get there, or if you want, you can attempt to fix it. Vasya, you said you wanted to kind of scout around and look through the rest of this room. Feel free, roll an investigation check for me. So based on that, you kind of follow the lengths of the walls around the room, and you realize there's a little kind of alcove you haven't been to yet. And as you walk into it, you see that there's a door that's slightly ajar. As you poke your head into that room, you see someone slumped over in the corner. You're not quite sure who this is, but all signs point to this being the Artificer that you were looking for. And they certainly don't look alive. But something else catches your eye. Based on that roll, you see that they seem to be sitting in a pool or puddle of a black liquid that's like seeping closer and closer to you. I actually ended this implying or foreshadowing that that's where I'm headed next. I'm going to talk about how I would bring the infect mechanic into 5th edition and start statting out some creatures with infect. So if that sounds interesting, let me know and subscribe to the channel. And I also have some magic items and other cards that were recommended on that TikTok that I really want to see made into 5th edition stat blocks. If you have any suggestions or any questions about 5e D&D, I'm happy to help you out. But as I always say, be safe, make smart life choices.